Well, it's time now for our business update, and for that we head to the World Economic Forum in Davos in the Swiss Alps. It's there that our business editor, Stephen Carroll, is on hand for the gathering. Now it brings together political and business leaders from around the world. Stephen, now tell us, we do expect French President François Hollande to speak. He's arrived there in Davos. What are we expecting to hear from the French president?
Yes, that's right. François Hollande had been out, in fact, scheduled to speak this morning, but as you may be able to tell from behind me, we're having quite a wintry day here in Davos, and the snow had delayed his arrival here at the World Economic Forum. So he's going to be taking to the stage in about an hour's time. He's a couple of themes that we know he's going to talk about. He's going to discuss climate change ahead of the Paris Climate Conference later this year. He's going to be discussing global governance, in particular coordination in the fight against terrorism, that in the wake of the Paris attacks in recent weeks. He's also going to be, though, of course, speaking, because there are so many business leaders gathered here, about the French economy and about the reforms that his government is putting in place to try to boost France's competitiveness abroad. He's been trying to impress those business leaders that have come here and encourage them to come to set up in France. He's meeting with 20 major companies just after his speech. They'll include Jack Ma, the chief executive of Alibaba, the Chinese e-commerce giant, just among many other companies. But of course, the Davos gathering here does deal with a whole range of issues, but it is primarily about business. We're going to talk now to Miki Tsusaka, who is the managing director and senior partner of the Boston Consulting Group, based in Tokyo. Miki, thank you for joining us on France 24. You're based in Japan, as I say. It's a place that's gone under huge economic transformation in recent years. Talk to us about the business environment in Japan.
Well, I think Abenomics has really fundamentally changed what we're trying to do. It's been extremely well covered in the press overall, so I won't repeat what you may have already read. But I do think that there's a sense of cautious but realistic optimism about the environment. The fiscal stuff has been done. We've seen the news about the monetary easing. The third arrow has been the one that I think affects us most in terms of...
This is structural reforms, trying to overhaul parts of the economy. Where do you see the biggest challenges there?
Well, I think there's a debate as to whether it's enough and it's going fast enough and all of that. But I think we have to actually look at the data to see what we have achieved.
There's been some mixed assessments of how Abenomics, these policies by Prime Minister Sinzo Abe, have been effective. We've, of course, seen the stock market soaring, but we had Japan falling back into recession after that sales tax increase earlier this year. Is that worrying business people in Japan?
It does worry us, but I think it's an economic inevitability. The consumption tax had to be raised. It will be raised, not right away, but in due course, as stated. And I do think that part of what's going on, though, in terms of real structural and demographic changes, is, in fact, the increase of participation of women in the labor force. As you know, we're 125 million people, 20% of us are aging. That population is shrinking, and half the population isn't being tapped. And since Abe-san took over, I think there are about 750,000 women that are now in the workforce. Our labor participation rate, I think, is at parity now with some of our Western compatriots. So that's a lot of women back at work. Now, they've had to go back to work, but I think it's a good start.
And this leadership coming from Sinzo Abe, is that trickling down into the higher ends of companies as well, those more senior positions?
Well, he has stated a bold goal of 20-20-30, so 30% managerial positions by women in 2020. Arithmetically, it looks tough to achieve, but at least it's a number that's out there. And I think corporates and the public sector are both working together to see what is realistic and what they can achieve. And I think the best of the brightest of the leaders are, in fact, very committed to that cause, and I look forward to continuing to support that cause.
You've been involved in a group of putting together a group of these senior women in Japan as well for a gathering earlier this year. Tell us how that was received and how you feel that may have had an effect.
The conference was called the World Assembly for Women under Mr. Abe, and it was the first ever gathering, I think, of a women's Davos, I suppose, and we're trying to do that again a year from now. Again, it's one conference, it's 2 days, it's not going to change the world, but to think about the leaders that were present, both from the private and public sector, including the minister of the government, I think it was a terrific gathering. And again, it's just one meeting, but we need fiscal reform, structural reforms, and all of that to come together, including additional tax incentives for women to go back to work as opposed to not. We need 400,000 spots of daycare centers to be filled and created so women can go back to work if they choose going back to work.
You were among a minority here in Davos as well, in that it's less than 17% of women participating in the World Economic Forum. Have you been able to raise any of those issues while you've been here?
Indeed. I took a look at the delegate list of the 2,500. In fact, only 91 of us are from Japan, of which 10 are women. So we're hovering around the 11% mark. There's been a lot of discussions around gender parity. The report that came out a few years ago that put us at 105 out of 136 was a good piece of shocking news, I suppose, and that has prompted the conversation. Again, we'll continue to talk, but no action, just talk is not good enough. So I think there have been substantive conversations that I've been pleased to be part of.
Last year, of course, we had the Prime Minister Sinzo Abe here speaking in Davos, a different delegation here this year. Is there a sense that that message that he gave last year is being carried on?
Oh, no. I think there's a lot of other things happening in our country as well. So I think the delegates that are here are very committed. And, again, as I said at the beginning, I think there's a sense of cautious optimism. And I think you have to believe that, especially to be in the private sector. But we'll see what we can do to create change and growth.
Miki Tsusaka, thank you, from the Boston Consulting Group based in Tokyo. Before we go, just time for a quick look at what's happening on the markets. European markets trading up again today after the announcement by the European Central Bank that they would begin quantitative easing to the tune of 60 billion euros a month. That's having a positive effect on the European markets this afternoon. Plenty more from Davos coming up later today, but for now it's back to you, Molly.
Yes, indeed. Plenty more from as what we can see there is a very snowy Swiss Alps behind you. Stephen Carroll reporting there from Davos in the World Economic Forum. Thank you, Stephen.